The final chat is going to be with Ying Chung, the founder of Launchpilots. It's an online marketplace that connects university students with brand sponsorships, and we'd like to welcome her to the stage. Thank you.
I feel like I'm doing job interviews here. It's really weird. And now I've got the youngest person in the room with the coolest T-shirt. Paul, she's got a better T-shirt than yours. I'm sorry, mate. Launchpilots. And it's got Chinese on it, which is better than yours. So your Twitter profile says, Student Sponsorship Marketplace. We create empowering engagement between students and brands. So what does that mean? You're basically matching students with beer? I saw you're doing a promotion with Budweiser at the moment.
We are. So we've also matched them with Red Bull.
With Red Bull.
And other beverages.
I'm sure parents like you. But no, not to demean it.
Keeps them up during exams, you know.
Yeah,
it's important.
So, I mean, did you start this in your dorm room? Was it an idea that you had because you were bored of homework? How did you come up with the idea?
The idea started when I just graduated, actually. I went to Beijing to start working and actually started doing these climate change campaigns all across China.
Good timing.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
I look younger than I really am. Anyway, so we were working with these student societies from 300 different universities, and all of them had the same problem. They had all these ideas and projects, but they couldn't find any funding for them. So I kind of became a de facto sponsorship agent for them and went out to these big brands. Finally, we worked with Nike and other brands, right? And we got these sponsorships for them. And we realized that the brands wanted to work with the students, but they didn't want to go to them one by one. They wanted to be aggregated so they can get a bang for their buck, right? And so I figured, well, isn't there a better way to do this? Can we create a platform that aggregates both sides and makes it easier for both of them?
So when I was a student, it was quite hard to, we were a bit left-wing in the UK, and the idea of Nike coming to our campus was like the devil visiting, right? So it's different times. But how do you get students to accept a brand coming to their campus and hanging out with them? Because usually brands come with a mission. It's not always a very clear one, but they come with a mission. So how do you bridge that divide between the brand and the student? I understand China students aren't, well, they're supposedly extremely left-wing and communist, which is not true. But so how do you deal with that divide?
I think students are very practical these days. I think they have their own mission, and if the brands are able to provide the resources for them to do that, then it's not a huge barrier. I think it's actually harder to get the school administration to allow the brands to come in, which is why our approach is actually easier for brands to work with, because they don't have to deal with all the admin and get approval. They can just work directly with the student societies and plan with them.
So it's bridging the societies, not individual students. It's the societies with the brands, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So give us an example of this Budweiser, this, what's it called, Dream Brewery, right? Well, what's that about? How does that work?
So they're trying to do more of like a startup competition, and they're trying to source ideas from the students. So for the students, they promote this competition to their friends, and based on the number of applications that are driven, they get rewarded from Budweiser to do other projects that might be related to startups. So they might have their own, startup weekend events, and then that's where the funding can go towards, basically.
But there's no need for product placement. It's not a startup around what can you do with beer. I mean, it's
not
open.
It's not, yeah.
So do brands see this as it's more of a CSR, kind of giving back to community activity, or is it more of a we need to get our products in young people's hands?
There's different reasons why brands work with us. So there are a couple that are more CSR related, but the majority we see are very marketing related. So trying to build a brand, trying to build brand loyalty early with these students. Some of them come to us to do more of a sales kind of thing, and some of them come for more of a recruitment, either talent or trying to find KOLs or key opinion leaders who they can work with in their social media and so forth. So it's quite broad, actually, the reasons why they come to us.
And I'm just surprised. How do you persuade the students to come on board? What's the benefit for them? Is it, I mean, without you, what would change?
Well, I think it's a difference between a few clicks and a couple thousand cold calls and emails every day. And that's what we experienced when we were trying to raise sponsorship. Yeah. So I think it's a no-brainer for them. It's so much easier. They can just click and apply to dozens of sponsors. They don't have to cold email them. They don't have to find their contacts. They don't have to go through proposal after proposal.
So they would be using that money to push their society or whatever association.
Yeah, so they can use the money for their own projects, team building, events, so anything they want, really, yeah.
And you started that here and then moved up to China, or you started it in China? How did you get this off the ground?
I started it in Hong Kong, and then, but because I worked with so many universities in China, then it was pretty easy just to basically replicate it and launch in China as well.
So now you're in how many universities and how many cities?
We have 300 campuses covered in about 200 cities across Greater China. So that includes Hong Kong, includes some cities in Taiwan, and Tier 1, Tier 2, and even some Tier 3 cities in China.
So the role you play is the marketplace. Does that mean that you're in the middle? So is it you're getting the sponsors and you're getting the students. How do you recruit all these people? I'm curious about the act of getting them all on board. How does that happen? Is it purely word of mouth?
So for brands, actually our primary channel is LinkedIn. A lot of marketers like to be on LinkedIn, both in China and Hong Kong. So we do a lot of work there. An interesting thing that we're just starting to see is that because the students that we work with, a lot of them, the ones that go out for sponsorships are more like the PR, the marketing officer. And some of them, when they graduate, they're actually going into positions at brands that are also controlling the budget. And since they've worked with us in the past, they like us and they'll try to use us again.
So you're feeding.
Exactly.
The students who graduate then come back into a project.
Exactly.
Nice.
So that is super cool. And then on the student side, I mean, when I first started, I just got a bunch of emails from like the university websites and then send an email, and we would get like 60% open rates and 30% sign up rates just from that. That's really high.
Even with email, because the theory I've heard in China is nobody really uses email, right? It's WeChat or
So we were really surprised by that stat, but I think it's a pain that they really feel. So it was, at the beginning, I just wrote an HTML website that said, are you a student? Do you need sponsorship? And we still got 30% sign-up rate with no sponsors on the site.
So you designed the site yourself?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And your team now is 10, 20? How many people?
Oh, no, we only have 7 people. So
7?
Yeah,
Very nice.
3 in Hong Kong, 4 in Shanghai. It's keeping it quite lean for now.
But all the development's done by you and your guys?
Yeah, so development mostly done in Hong Kong.
And you're not an ex-banker, so you obviously didn't self-fund. How did you get this off the ground?
To begin with, I wrote the site myself.
Yeah.
Then when it got hard, I kind of bugged a bunch of developers around me until I found somebody who would do it for me for free.
Very nice. not even stock. You just bugged T-shirts.
Yeah, coffee, bubble tea sometimes. It worked until we got into Chinaccelerator actually, and then we got our first little bit of funding. And then right after...
Chinaccelerator is the one in Shenzhen, no?
Used to be in Dalian, now in Shanghai. We were in Dalian.
Okay.
And then right out of the accelerator, we got our angel round, and it's kept us alive till now, as well as our revenue, of course.
And do you think this is something that is specific to China, or do you think it could, it'd be wonderful if you could take this idea and go to America?
Yeah, so
or somewhere like that and say, hey, there's a new way to fund your campus, although American campuses are overly rich.
For sure. I mean, a lot of investors ask that question, like, what are your expansion plans? I look at it from the flip side. So when I first launched the site, I just advertised it on my own Facebook page. Yeah. And we had people signing up, students signing up from Malaysia, from the UK, from some, even some from like the Middle East. So it's pretty random. And I think the point is that this need is felt very strongly by students all over. So I'm sure that is a model that can work in many different geographies. But yeah, right now we're really trying to nail down China and get basically a scalable product that both the brands and the students love to use, and then we'll start looking at expansion from there.
But China's quite harsh when it comes to the internet because people tend to copy you pretty quickly. So you seeing any launch plots or lunch pilots? Or I mean, if Starbucks can have copycats, so can you. So are you seeing this happening?
We've seen some big companies try to copy it, but we haven't seen them really build up any traction. And I think the tricky thing about our business is it's not purely online. There's definitely an offline element, and there's a lot about how to manage students, and students being people as well, like very young people with not a lot of professional experience. That part is really tricky, I think, for big corporates to figure out. Our whole team come from student leadership backgrounds. We've run many different organizations, and so that's something that we know very well, and that's something we've been able to build in the product as well as how we manage and our customer service. So I think that's something that's very hard to copy. And of course, as we build up our network and our credibility with the students, that's not something that you can just replicate right away.
And I saw when I was kind of doing a little bit of research about you, I saw that you're quite active on Weibo and various. What are you finding in China? Because you said LinkedIn was good for recruiting the corporates. Apart from email, what's the best way to get these on the radar with students? Is it WeChat? Is it Weibo? Is it God forbid television?
WeChat is a really good channel, but actually we found that a lot of students don't use WeChat. They're still using QQ or QQ Space. Yep. So we also work a lot on there. And in the north and the south, it's different. So in the north, students use more Renren, and students
they still
in the
use
south,
Renren?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, surprising.
And students in the south use more Weibo and more Tencent tools.
You know, Renren is another Hong Kong startup back in remember, Anson? 98. Renren was started in Hong Kong. So, sorry, you interviewed them?
A different Renren.
A different Renren, but it was still Renren. We can adjust history for history's sake, especially when you come from Hong Kong. It's the way history works. So
Joe Chen is going to be speaking at our Beijing conference, May 21st, the CEO, founder of Renren.
Of the other Renren.
Right. I was
Correct.
10 years old then, so I have no idea.
Yeah. Ren, whatever. So within the matching, it sounds to me you can expand into other areas because you've got a captive audience with students. We've still got some minutes left, and a captive audience with the, you've got the kind of corporate B2B bit and the B2C bit. Do you see, another kind of investment question I always get asked is, do you see extensions beyond the kind of just funding a brand to do something with a student group? I mean, you've got a captive audience there, right?
Definitely. So what we've seen, it's kind of like the growth cycle for both the students and the brands. For the students, the sponsorship thing, it's when they're in their student societies and then they're looking for the next opportunity after they finish their term. With the brands, they're looking for the next level of engagement, right? So you do a sponsorship and then they're looking for something more. So one program that we're starting to develop is ambassador programs, which is another level of opportunity for the students, and it's an opportunity for the brand to penetrate deeper into the campuses. So that's kind of growing up. And then kind of...
And when you say ambassador, what do you mean? What do they do?
Right. So, Red Bull is very famous for their programs. So they have...
But don't you usually have to do something highly dangerous to be a Red Bull ambassador, like jump off a very large crane or drive a very
Those are
fast
like
car?
their celebrity spokespeople kind of things. People on campus are more about doing events that are related to the Red Bull brand or setting up sampling opportunities so that students can try the product. So so that's what a brand ambassador.
So the ambassador
would do.
becomes a real brand ambassador amongst the students.
Exactly. Yep.
And do they then recruit into Red Bull and people like that?
So the next stage, we're actually looking at how can we match the students and brands beyond campus, right? So when they graduate, they're looking for their graduate opportunities. And since they've worked with the brand over a course of a couple of years on different projects, sponsorships, contests, ambassador programs, it becomes a very natural next step to recruit them. And they're well tested, right? They know they're good cultural fit as well as ability
Interesting.
fit.
So it's almost like an outsourced internship program, right? They actually work for you, but not in your offices.
Yeah, and
nice.
you get the marketing value as well as the recruitment, the talent value as well. So it's like one campus engagement pipeline.
Sounds very well thought out. Well done.
Yeah.
Round of applause for
Thank
a
you.
lovely guest.
Great. So let me just ask one other question. Launchpilots. How did you come up with that name?
It was a play on the word pilots. So pilot is like a project, a new type of project that you want to launch. So we wanted to help students launch a lot of new things that they're trying to test out. A pilot is also somebody who's leading, navigating, trying to find direction. And we really hope that by connecting students with more resources and opportunities, we help them find what they want to do and pursue in life.
Okay. Yeah, I was half expecting a helicopter or something. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Napoleon, for a superb job of moderating. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Good luck.